Okay, I believe that we are now officially going live. This is our first time, so please bear with us if there are any issues for Willow's Monday Meets. And what we're going to do today is speak with our Managing Director of Survivor Services, Jessica Beeson, about what she does at the Willow and what Willow's programs entail, and then talk a little bit about a new position I think is going to be very exciting. So if you're just joining us, welcome. My name's Will Averill. I'm the Director of Communications for the Willow, and this is Willow Meets, part of our new outreach program to kind of let people know via a series of Zoom meetings who we are, what we do, and talk to various programs and program managers, staff, and volunteers. So hi, Jessica. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Will. How are you?
Good. I'm well. How are you today?
Good.
All right, excellent, excellent. Well, can you start by just sort of letting us know what your title is and a little bit about what that entails?
So as you said, I'm the Managing Director of Survivor Services, which is a lot of words, which basically means that I see our direct service side of the Willow. Underneath that umbrella is, of course, our shelter services, transitional housing units that we have, all of our community-based services that include court advocacy and support groups, as well as the work we do in our two rural counties, Jefferson and Franklin County. And then we have human trafficking program and also foster care transition program. So I think people are often surprised by how much we offer and how much we do for clients that need our services.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. And one of the things that certainly as a director of communications that we've worked on for a long time is trying to figure out a way to let people know that, you know, our main focus is to provide safety support and services to survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. But there are also elements to that a lot of people don't necessarily think of. And when they think of us primarily just as an emergency shelter rather than some of the other programs that we've got going as well. So you basically your role encompasses pretty much anything in which it is a direct contact or work with survivors or supervising the roles that work in direct contact with direct service with survivors.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
All right, and can we talk a little bit about kind of some of the challenges of that? What I mean, right now we're obviously in a very difficult time. How has that kind of shifted the focus of the shelter services we provide, and then maybe a little bit about the community services as well?
Well, so it has definitely been challenging with COVID-19. So we've had to really slow down what we can offer in terms of shelter services. So our house that can normally have 28 people in it, we've had to scale back to basically having a family unit per bathroom available in case we had a quarantine situation. And that was based on county health department recommendations, CDC recommendations on how to do congregate living safely during a pandemic. And so we have had to, really turn a lot of people away, and that's been particularly difficult because in a time where you're under a stay-at-home order, domestic violence has seen an uptake and an increase, and so our 24-hour hotline has had a lot of calls and people needing shelter services, which we have not really been able to provide. But luckily, we've been working in partnership with the county in particular, and finding some money, basically COVID funding, that allows us to put people in hotels if necessary, has allowed us some extra funding to relocate people. So a lot of times people will know that they have a safe place if they can get to family in, Ohio or something. And so we'll relocate people. And so we've been kind of doing a lot more of those types of things than we normally do. So that's been a challenging time. That's been a challenge that's really COVID specific. I think generally just with direct service and domestic violence, you're always going to be challenged with, are we doing enough? Are we saying the right things? Are we providing the right resources? It's a hard thing to leave domestic violence. And so we repeat clients and making sure that we understand that, you know, the research really shows it takes multiple, up to 7 times even, attempts to leave an abuser before you're really successful at it, and having that empathy and that kindness. And so making sure our staff gets that constant and professional development and education, just reminders of what it means to really be an advocate for this type of work.
And in terms of so that's looking at the COVID perspective, but even, you know, sort of prior to that, with you know, shelter and emergency housing versus transitional housing, we were going through some fundamental changes. We added transitional housing relatively recently, although it's been what, about a year now that we've had that?
It'll be a year in August.
A year in August. Okay, so nearly a year now of that. And so how do you sort of see the transitions in terms of our shelter services between kind of what it previously was with just a 30-day emergency shelter, and what we're moving towards with a longer term shelter and the transitional housing as well? Does that make sense?
You cut out a little bit, but I think I got the gist of it. So
okay.
If I don't answer something, just ask it again, but I'll kind of
absolutely.
So the transitional program has been awesome. It's a partnership with Tenants to Homeowners of Willow and the city of Lawrence. And we basically started that program with some houses that KU Endowment owned, but don't really have anything. They don't want to be landlords and have real plans for that land. So Tenants to Homeowners manages the property, and Willow clients that are ready for kind of that next step, that transitional living, they get, you know, decreased rent, they get case management, and they can stay for up to 2 years. So that's a really positive program. We've already had some success stories come out of that program, and you know, I think that will continue to flourish and potentially grow. So that's exciting. And then I think that another thing, you know, since I've been here about 2 years now. When I first started, we did a 30-day stay at shelter, and then you could get these 10-day extensions. And it caused a lot of stress on the staff. It caused a lot of stress with our survivors, just simply because every 10 days or 8 days, they're thinking, oh gosh, I've got to do this other extension. And then they're having to decide if there's room. And we had this policy of, you know, always taking anybody in immediate danger, which meant we were exiting a lot of people before they were ready. And so we really made a decision based upon looking at a lot of research, talking to a lot of other agencies that had made these changes, and decided to go to a 90-day stay. And then if you get an extension, it's for a 30 days. So you could get a 120-day stay. And that allows us to do much more intensive case management with each client, really set goals, really make progress on those goals, allows a longer window of opportunity to be able to get things like employment figured out. A lot of people come to us and they don't even have their birth certificate and driver's license anymore. They just left it all behind. So sometimes the first step is just getting them the documentation they need to even be able to apply for jobs, or, you know, disability or anything that they might need to be working on. And sometimes that takes 2 to 3 weeks. And by that time, you're almost at your 30 days and you haven't really done anything except for kind of just get your documents in order. And so it's an exciting step, I think. I think it has decreased the stress level for our clients. It's decreased the stress level for staff in the shelter that don't have quite as many moving parts and fires to put out all the time. And so I'm excited about it. Again, we kind of launched that right before COVID hit. And so as with everybody in the world, everybody's kind of thinking anything that you started new, you don't really have a lot of great data on yet because everything got flipped upside down. But we are still real positive about the changes. And in a way, it kind of allowed us to do a small sort of test run with it, despite ourselves. You're muted.
Yeah, that sounds. Sorry. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. And in terms of the one of the things I think that comes up very, very often as well is that we are only able to help folks as much as they know about our services. And kind of going back to those early days of when it was sort of a volunteer-based organization and a grassroots organization, it was all word of mouth, and we've moved into this kind of era of being a little more being more open and doing outreach. And one area of that is sort of making sure that folks know about us at the time of incidents, and that is where one of the newer roles is going, correct?
Yes, which is very.
And so do you want to talk a little bit about that, about sort of the role of the Jessica Gonzalez Victims Assistant, kind of how it came to be and what it's going to be like?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, I started meeting with the Lawrence Police Department and the DA's office, and we had a monthly meeting roughly up until now. And we started talking about just different ways that we could partner with each other in a more productive way for our survivors, so that it wasn't so disjointed and that there was, you know, some sort of seamless transitions, handing people off to different, you know, offices that were going to be managing a case, or et cetera. And one of the things that we learned in those meetings is that it's very difficult for LPD to do the follow-ups with DV with the fidelity that they really need to be done because of staffing issues and because of the number of DV calls. And so we started looking at models across the country. There are models where a victim advocate will work with the local domestic violence agency and work for them, but actually kind of office with the police department. And so what that person will do is in essence go on all of the follow-up calls. So they won't go out on calls in, you know, the emergency call. So they won't be kind of in that risky environment of going to a domestic violence call on the ground in real time. What they're going to do is do the follow-up. So you need to do follow-up ideally within 24 to 48 hours. And that will be scheduling those follow-ups, making those calls to those people to say, hey, we want to check in with you. Do you know about the services available? Do you have any questions about the process that you might be about to start going into, if there's going to be prosecution, et cetera? And then be able to do that sort of soft handoff to the DA's office, or that soft handoff to a court advocacy program within our own agency. And so I think that it will be a really nice service because it will allow people, the research tells us that about 50% of the people who come into domestic violence shelters didn't know one existed prior to an incident that caused the police to come to their home. So oftentimes that police contact is really the contact in which they learn that these agencies are there, these services are available, and that there is somewhere to go to get some help and get some support. And so having somebody follow up that has the training as an advocate, but also the access of the police department to get to those victims and those survivors is really huge. And it's very new to our community. We've never done it in Douglas County before. But it's exciting and it's a great partnership, and all three agencies, us, LPD, and the DA's office, is really excited about it. So we're going to start interviewing. The job is posted right now. It's been posted for 3 weeks and it closes tomorrow. So anybody with any interest, you have another 24 hours or so to get your application in, and then we'll start interviewing probably next week after everybody has time to review it. It's a really cool opportunity for our community, and my hope is that kind of in this phase one, this person will do the follow-ups, they'll do safety planning with people, they'll link them to different resources in the community, they'll help them navigate that court system. But then as we get into like a phase two, we would potentially have multiple victim advocates within our law enforcement agencies. This one's going to be with Lawrence Police Department. We'd like to get one in the future with the Sheriff's Department. And then also perhaps in our counties, Franklin and Jefferson. And then we hope to start a high lethality review team here in Douglas County, which would be fantastic. And ultimately what that means is a group of people that have touched a case. So it would be an advocacy agency like ours, law enforcement, obviously the DA court system, and it could include clergy or the hospital or anybody who's really been involved, that when a case is deemed at extremely high risk for lethality. So this particular abuser is extremely dangerous, and it's really reviewing that case together collectively so that we don't have things fall through the cracks and we lose people we shouldn't lose because we didn't do all the right things. So those are there's really good models for those that work really well across the country. And so we're just trying to catch up.
All right, great. And then just to let people know, since we are on Facebook Live here, if you do have questions that you would like to ask either about that particular role or about sort of anything that we've talked about, you can feel free to put those in the Facebook comments. I've got an eye on it on my phone here, so just kind of keeping track of that. And then I thought we might quickly share a screen here so we can kind of show people where they would want to look if they want to go to the Willow webpage and check out the role or apply for the role. That can be done from willowdvcenter.org/careers. So I'll just kind of share that here so that you can see it. willowdvcenter.org careers. It's got a listing here of the position description. There is also a full download. You can download the full job description there as well, and then send in a resume and a cover letter to Jessica there at jbeeson@willowdvcenter.org. So that is something that if you are interested in, we would love to have your application in. The deadline is tomorrow, so please be sure to get that in as soon as possible. But we would love to have as many applications as possible in for that. So Jessica, just to kind of summarize, we've talked about how, what the position is. We've talked about kind of where we've come from. What kind of thoughts do you have on where you see the Willow going as an organization moving forward from here?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we do a lot of really amazing work that people don't realize we do. Sometimes as we've stated, people think that we are an emergency shelter and that's kind of where it ends. And honestly, the majority of our clients actually are not in our shelter system. They're in our community resources, they're in our group support systems, they're working with our court advocates, or they're doing work with our foster care transition, which is a new program, which is also amazing. So I think some of these programs like our human trafficking and our foster transition, and certainly our transitional housing, and now this sort of victim advocacy role, I think they all have a lot of room for growth. We also have a lot of room for growth in our counties. We know that there's a lot of domestic violence in rural counties, but it's a lot harder to pinpoint and to get the services to the people who need them in those environments. So our teams in both Jefferson and Franklin work really hard to be actively advertising that we're there and that we're a safe place to turn and talk to. So I think those are really exciting. And then of course we are in the process of expanding our capacity for shelter services by getting a second shelter house in town. And so once that comes online, that will increase our capacity by I think 20, which will allow us to help a lot more people in sort of that emergency crisis. So that's also an exciting thing. So I think, as an agency, we're a really healthy agency. We continue to grow. We're one of the larger nonprofits in Lawrence, and financially we're very secure. And so I feel like as an agency, we are in a really healthy and great spot. And it's kind of like we can just keep growing and keep offering additional services and grow our programs and make sure that our staff and our clients are supported and paid well and have all of the things that they need to be successful. So I think that ultimately the Willow's in a great spot already, but it'll just continue to get better. We have great staff, amazing advocates.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Was there anything either Willow related or not related to the Willow that you wanted to say or plug or get out there?
I mean, I guess since I'm on this interview on the day that my, second child turned 14, I'll say happy birthday to my daughter, Hazel. But other than that, no, I'm good. Everybody stay safe.
Yes, thank you so much. Just to remind everybody, if you are in need of information or services, our 24-hour hotline is available, 785-843-3333. If you're interested in getting involved or interested in donating, you can do so at willowdvcenter.org. We do have our Willow Garden Party coming up. So please be sure to check the Facebook page for more information on that. It's going to be virtual this year. People are going to be getting baskets that they can have at home and have an on your own lawn virtual garden party and support survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking in Douglas, Jefferson, and Franklin County. There's also a variety of online auctions you can bid on. So for all of that information, you can check our Facebook page, check on willowdvcenter.org. If you need immediate assistance from us, give us a call, 785-843-3333. And thank you very much, Jessica Beeson, for being the first of our guests. We will be back next week with another presentation, and we will be back with several more of these where you'll meet more of the staff and get to know more about each of our individual programs in a little bit more depth and detail. I'm Will Averill, Director of Communications, and thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.